And so for help with that, we're going to welcome in accounting professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Good morning, Dan. Let's jump right into the markets. They were, of course, closed yesterday for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday after ending last week on an up note. However, this morning futures are down ahead of the opening bell. All right, so the latest out of the first day of the World Economic Forum, more than 60% of the chief economists say a global recession is likely, with CEOs the most pessimistic they've actually been in a decade. Dan, what could this mean for the U.S. economy?
Well, the bottom line here is when we're talking about recession, and although the definition has changed for some people's convenience, it's all about the slowdown of economic output. So when that is the case, how do businesses react? They react with layoffs. So what could it mean for the U.S.? Potentially higher unemployment, which is not good for American workers.
All right, Dan, you kind of led me to my next question. So U.S. job openings are historically high as workers are actually quitting in droves, topping 10 million openings for the 13th straight month. So, Dan, I mean, come on, there really isn't a quick fix to this, but what exactly is going on?
Well, this has been confusing for so long, right? Because on one hand, there are so many job openings, and on the other hand, unemployment being low, and are people looking for opportunities. So the way I see it right now is that all these job openings, that relates to, well, there's a lot of opportunity to work. Our unemployment should be at zero. Right? Because basically everyone who wants a job should have a job right now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. How about this? So after several states have fully banned TikTok on state-owned devices, the social media giant is now conceding with a $1.5 billion overhaul of the platform amid fears that it will just be completely outright banned in the states. So Dan, what are these changes, and do you actually think the U.S. should ban TikTok?
I'm really torn on this one because the Chinese are allegedly behind this and doing nefarious things as a result through TikTok. There's a part of me that says, hey, listen, national security, people's individual security, we really shouldn't have this. At the same time, can we believe the government? So I think there's a lot of people questioning, is this just another government overreach and the government telling us what to do? I just don't know what the truth is, because if we knew the truth, then the answer would be easy.
Great point. Dan, do you remember when used cars cost a crazy amount of money during the pandemic? I mean, that wasn't that long ago. But last month, economists recorded the largest 12-month plunge in used cars prices since 2009. Dan, is this just a case of there's just more new cars available to buy now?
Yeah, I think so, because the reason that the used car market, quite frankly, exploded was because we had that chip shortage, supply chains were broken, and you literally couldn't get a new car. So people were turning towards the used car market. Now we see that there are a number of cars, new cars, on the market. So supply and demand, the supply is now there. So now we do see the cost of used cars coming down significantly.
Well, this next story almost sounds a little contradictory, but stick with me here. So the 90s, they're not only making a comeback in fashion, but also in cars. Okay, so get this. The value of vehicles that were made in the 1990s have increased the most out of any other decade. I mean, you don't really think of the 90s as exactly being the golden age of cars. So Dan, what exactly is going on here?
Well, I agree with you as well. I mean, being a car collector myself, the 90s are not exactly the target that I'm looking at here. So I think it's probably related to nostalgia. You know, when people get to a certain point in time, they're trying to look back and say the good old days. That's one piece of it. And also, once cars get to a certain age, generally it's about 25 years, the value actually stops coming down and starts going up. Therefore, it becomes a collectible. So I think it's the combination of those two things that are putting cars from the 90s back to popularity.
Interesting. All right, finally, It's cuffing season, and jewelry giant Shanko has quite the romantic, albeit possibly a little awkward, job for one lucky single person. What is it?
Well, let me start off by saying this cuffing season, which I had never heard of, that's when people start looking for a companion for the colder months. Now, I call that coughing season. Apparently, it's cuffing season. So what's happening here is that you have an offer of $1,500 to go on 15 first dates. And of course, you have to be single, no cheaters allowed. Okay, that's great. But here's the way I look at it: $1,500 for 15 dates. Who's paying for this? It's certainly $100 a date. Not exactly a way to impress someone.
No.
So maybe. And on top of that, Alex, how about this? Isn't there excitement related to a first date? If you're going to do it 15 times, I mean, doesn't it become boring and take the fun out? I don't know.
I would think so. I mean, especially here in Manhattan, I mean, one date costs a lot of money. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody's going to be into this. Again, it is cuffing season after all. Dan Geltrude,
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was a lot of fun.